Well, today we are going to talk about home inspections, and I have my friends here from Win Home Inspections, located in Noblesville, and they are going to talk to us today kind of about their home inspection company, the importance of, getting a home inspection. So let's start off, you guys. Tell us about your company and tell us who you are and a bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having us, Jennifer. Really appreciate being able to chat with you today. My name is Dani Esposito. This is my husband, Tony. We started Win Home Inspection. We actually launched September 2nd. This is something that we've wanted to do for a while. Tony's been a home inspector for 3.5 years with another franchise, and we finally decided to just go out on our own and work together to grow this company and just work within our community. We service Noblesville, Westfield, and Zionsville and surrounding areas. And it's been so fun. We've had the best time. I'll let Tony talk about what the company is and what we do.
We started about 3.5 years ago as working with the franchise, and I got my experience and always wanted to just do it on my own. So that's why we started this. Um, we are a full service home inspection company, so I do literally everything: sewer scopes, drone, mold, pest. I'm
Mhm.
certified in pretty much everything. So it's been really exciting to get this off the ground this fast. So we've had a very, very good first month, and it's looking like the second month is going to beat our first month. So starting out very strong and super excited to get this going on our own. Of course, with the help of Dani, she's behind the scenes doing all the work for us, getting us to where we're going. And so it's been very, very exciting so far.
Tony has 20 plus years experience in the real estate industry. He worked in California as a realtor and then has his license here as well in Indiana. And so he does a really good job communicating with the other agents, that we work with the clients, just very well versed in speaking to people about what's going on with these homes that we're inspecting, whether he's doing a pre-listing inspection or it's for a buyer. And so it's really been incredible just to hear from some of these real estate agents that have found him, that they're so pleased with his report, so pleased with his work. We understand that this is a very relational transaction.
And emotional.
It's very emotional. It's one of the biggest decisions that you make in your lifetime. And so we take it very personally. And we like to partner with other real estate agents that carry that same philosophy that this is very personal, it's very emotional. We care a lot about the clients that we're working with.
Yeah, I treat every home as though I'm buying it myself. And that comes from the real estate side. It's very important to me that they know every single thing that they can know about the house. And it's it's um it's important that you have really good bedside manner in this business because you can come across home inspectors, some that don't have the right, you don't have personalities that match. And so you really need to find one that you can relate to on a regular basis and knows how to handle your client. So in California, I used the same inspector for 17 years because I knew how he wrote his reports and how good he was with my clients, no matter their background. Some are super emotional, some are transactional, and that home inspector knew exactly how to handle each situation. And that's where I learned that from, was watching him handle the clients. And so I've kind of mirrored that. And then, of course, having the real estate experience has really helped me communicate with the buyers or the sellers as to what's really wrong with your house and what's a big deal and what's not a big deal, and that everything can be fixed. A lot of people think that the deal is done because something can't is wrong, but everything can be fixed. And it's my goal to make sure that they understand that and don't panic as much as that might happen quite a bit with different scenarios of issues with the house. So it's my job to just make sure they understand what they're getting.
I love that. I love that so much. Well, congratulations on the first month of being amazing. That's wonderful. And You talked about some really important points, making sure that the clients, which would be the buyer or the seller, feel very comfortable matching their personality. And I knew both of you had been in the real estate industry, so you know how important that is for us to match our clients' personalities and manage those expectations. And it seems like that's what you're doing, which is amazing, which is also probably why you're so successful. So um, let's talk about now, people who are watching this, maybe they have never bought a home, or maybe they're selling a home for the first time. Maybe they're very experienced. We have an audience of all different people. So let's talk in general about home inspections. So um, I'm going to go ahead and say my disclaimer. You can tell your opinion. For me, I always, always, always recommend that a buyer, if we're talking about buyers, get a home inspection. Um, during COVID, if people remember, I think people were trying to waive home inspections and those type of things. Me, I would never advise that as a realtor. And I'm sure as an inspector, you would never advise that either. A home could be brand new, and there still are many issues possibly. So that's my disclaimer. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, absolutely. Every home needs to be inspected. Foregoing the home inspection is probably the worst thing you can do, and it's bad advice from an agent. Um, like you said, brand new homes still have a lot of problems. We do a lot of new construction, and the foremans are usually pretty happy with us doing that because we find the stuff that their subs have missed. So, and those reports can be pretty big on brand new homes. So, same with the older homes. We understand the competitiveness of it and the need to get the house, but I would never take the house with no inspection. It has to be done. Um, don't ever really trust the seller's disclosures either, because there's never complete, as far as my experience. So getting the home inspection is absolutely required. And we find things that the average person just isn't looking for.
Right.
When the realtor walks through the house, a lot of times they don't know what they're looking at, but some do, but they don't see the 30-year-old appliances, the electrical's old, the roof is shot, and they're just looking at the decorations and such. So you really need a second pair of eyes on it to see what's really going on with the house, and so you can inform your buyer and make a good decision as to whether they should move forward or not. Um,
I agree. I agree 100%. So let's talk about it. So when you are doing an inspection, what are some of the most common issues in general that you see in homes, just in general?
if it's an older home, it's the electrical panels are old and generally need to be replaced. There's four hazardous panels that I see all the time. So if the house is pre-60s, there are a lot of those panels here in Indianapolis, and a lot of the sellers don't even know that they have a dangerous panel. So just walking through the house, that's one of the first things they look at is, has the electrical been upgraded? And then a lot of times it hasn't, and it's an original dangerous panel that's been in the house 50 years. It still works, but it needs to be replaced. So as a realtor walking through the house, that's something they should look at. Be familiar with those four different panels and be like, okay, this house needs a brand new electrical panel. That's a cost. That's a defect. What else is going on here? It generally means that the house hasn't been upgraded as far as the grounding on the property. Um, there's just a lot of things that you should be looking for, especially the utilities. You can tell pretty quick if you know what you're looking at, that they're original, if they've been maintained, um, especially water heaters and furnaces. And that tells you a lot about the house's condition. It may look pretty, but the bones are not so pretty once you look at all the utilities. And you don't want to find out after the fact,
Right.
in the inspection report, that all of this stuff is old. It may work, doesn't mean it has to be replaced if it still works. We don't ever recommend replacing it just because it's old. We recommend budgeting for a replacement in the future, because it is just a mechanical device. If it works, it works. And the seller will generally say, well, it does work, so I'm not replacing it, even though it's past its service life. But a lot of old systems work perfect,
That
and they
is
don't
so
require
true.
they don't
That
require.
is so true. Back to the electrical, that's interesting that you say that because on my last few inspection reports, that's been an issue. It's not an updated panel or, um, like you said, the grounding, anything. And here's the thing with that, with those electrical issues, a lot of times, and tell me if this is true, those are some potential safety issues. Would you agree?
Yep, that's why they need to be replaced. They fail for a variety of reasons. Um, the bus bars will arc. The breakers will not trip. So they can cause fires, and they're known hazards. They're known recalled panels. So for them to be still in the home, that's pretty dangerous, and that's 100% health and safety needs to be asked for and needs to be replaced. At a minimum, have an electrician out to the house to look at it. But if it's one of the four, that's an automatic replacement for us, and it goes in the report as a replacement. One of the first things I do when I walk in the house is look at the outlets to see if they're two plug or three plug modern. And if they're two plug, then I know, okay, this house hasn't been modified. Maybe it has, and they just didn't do these outlets, but that tells me right away that, okay, I need to go look at the panel right now and see what's happening here.
Yeah.
We have a variety of electrical. If you're 60s to 70s, you might have aluminum. So if I'm going to a 60s, 70s house, might be aluminum wiring because copper was very expensive in the 60s and
Mhm.
70s. So they went to aluminum, which is dangerous, single strand. So if I have one of those houses, it's the first thing I'm looking for in the panel is aluminum because that's a safety hazard. So just knowing what I'm looking at as far as the age of the house, I know exactly what to look for when I go in because it's probably there. The older ones, there may have been 10 electricians on the property that have modified and added
Mhm.
and done a bunch of stuff to the panel, and that's where you find a lot of safety issues also, stuff that wasn't done correctly by handyman or something like that. And so I find a lot of that where the panel itself is modern, but somebody's messed with it and it needs an evaluation by an electrician because there are some safety issues. So even new
Absolutely.
can have big issues if somebody's messed with it.
Yeah, that is one of the number one things I've seen. And of course, we didn't talk ahead of time. Like, um, I'm going to mention one of the things that have seen the most, and tell me if you see this as well. For me, I think it seems if they have a crawl space on every report that there's moisture.
Yeah.
And that is a huge cost potentially. Okay. Do you see that a lot? Because I swear it's on every report.
Yeah, pretty much everyone is. Depends on if you have an encapsulated or closed crawl space or one that's vented to the exterior. The ones that are vented, you want the outside atmosphere to kind of mirror the crawl space atmosphere so they are even. And a lot of times you'll have a sump pit down there that is just open. And that has an open pool of water just leaving water vapor in the air.
Mhm.
And a lot of times there's no vapor barrier to keep that moisture on the ground. And 9 out of 10 crawl spaces are not encapsulated or do not have the vapor barrier installed correctly. So that moisture just hits the subfloor, and that's where you get your microbial growth. And so I see it almost all the time, unless somebody's really spent the money to put the vapor barrier down, install it correctly, which is never correct. You're going to have moisture down there for the most part, especially depends on your elevation or where you're at,
Mhm.
as far as your above, if you're on a hill or where you're at, you're going to get some moisture coming through the block walls. And then again, if it's not uh, insulated properly on the actual walls, so most of the crawl spaces that are going are pretty wet. And often
Yeah.
if somebody knows that their crawl space is wet, they'll put a dehumidifier down there to kind of dry it out,
Mhm.
which is
Mhm.
smart. I think all crawl spaces should have one to keep the moisture down, but it's very rare. So I'm usually surprised
Well,
if I see.
and when we think about this, let's think, I don't know if this was a big deal back in the 60s and 70s and 80s, like when my parents bought a home, for example, like I'm positive that they weren't thinking about moisture in the crawl space. And I feel like not that maybe it's a new thing, but it's just we're more aware of it now because it's like, what are the chances that someone who has an older home has researched this and thought about their crawl space? A lot of people, like, since it comes up so much in the report, that's what I'm going to assume. Even myself, like, I don't sit there and think about it daily, right?
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of the homes will have an enclosed crawl space, which is part of their basement. So it has a
Oh,
door that has an enclosed space, but that's just raw earth right there. And so all that moisture is coming through and it's going into your living space. if you don't have the door secured properly, or sometimes there's no door and it's just an open crawl space. All of that moisture is coming into the living space, and that's why you need to keep that moisture down. Um, and sometimes the crawl space is the AC unit or the HVAC is drawing the air from the crawl space. And if you
Mm,
have moisture and microbial growth down there, you're just pumping all of that into your house. So I always look at that too, like where's the air coming from? If it's coming from the crawl space and there's moisture down there and microbial growth, that's something that's really, really bad for the household. Um,
for
so
sure.
yes.
Definitely. Okay, so those are two main things. I mean, yes, the electrical, the crawl space issues. And I say crawl space also with the attic. Those are the two, I see those a lot. Um, so that's great. Well, as you know, I love pre-listing inspections. So when someone says they want to sell their home, I, the ones that I work with, the sellers that I work with, I always require for them to do a pre-listing inspection. And for me, I started doing that this year because we were running into issues later when we got the buyer report back. So I thought, and I've learned from other colleagues, this is a great way to get ahead of the problems,
Mhm.
to see what's wrong so we don't run into those issues. Do you have a lot of people that are doing these pre-listing inspections now?
It's becoming more
It
common.
is.
And in my practice, probably the last 15 years, I did it every time. And out here, I don't see it that much, but it's become a thing recently. And it's very smart. That way you can disclose everything up front
Right.
and you don't have to fight with a buyer about how much a fix costs. So if you do have a foundation issue or if you have termite, you can pre-negotiate that because you already know about it. So let's
Mm,
use termite for an example. If you had $2,500 worth of termite damage from your inspector, you can say, okay, there is termite damage. I will contribute 2,500 towards that, and that's it. Feel free to inspect it yourself,
mhm.
get your own people, but we know about it. We will give you 2,500 towards that particular item, and we know about this other item, and we'll contribute to that, or it will be fixed. And it's not a fight over, well, that's $10,000 worth of termite
Yep.
damage, and then there's a fight. So that's why you do the pre-home inspection so that you can really disclose everything that's wrong with the house and pre-negotiate those items. And that's how you get a successful close. You don't want to find out
Mhm.
after the fact and also have a buyer come in with somebody saying that, or a trade saying this is a major problem. It's $30,000 worth of foundation issues when it's relatively an easy fix. Um, that you didn't know about because you didn't do the pre-home inspection, and now you're asked to reduce the price considerably.
Mhm.
And that's our job.
Exactly.
And of course, the realtor's job to prevent that by having the pre-home inspection, the pre-listing inspection. So it's the best practice by far to get that done. And as home inspectors, we know somebody's coming behind us. So pre-listing, we call out a lot of stuff that might not typically get called out, a little more cosmetics. On those, we don't typically call out a lot of cosmetics, but on those inspections, we will because somebody's coming behind us and we want to make sure that we've covered literally everything so there's no shock to the seller. So it's a very, very thorough inspection, and which is great for their disclosure.
Yes, I love that because I want everything on the report. Because like you said, if the buyer decides to do their own inspection and, in the pre-listing inspection things were missed, we want a very, very thorough pre-listing inspection. We want the seller to know everything they need to do before we actually list the home, which is great. And it's funny that you said in California, people do that all the time. Well, things trickle over here from the Midwest later. We're
They're a
very,
little more
we're
litigious
probably
out.
behind the real estate times.
Yeah. Well,
For sure, for sure.
the good thing about doing those is that you never know what the buyer is going to stick on.
Right.
So
Mm,
peeling paint might be their biggest thing, and now they want the whole house repainted when it's really not a big deal.
Right.
So that's the most important thing is that you're letting the buyer know, okay, we're aware of these things
Right.
and we will take care of it.
Right.
Because they might think that something small is a really big deal and you've
mhm.
pre-negotiated instead of finding out after the facts. It's very good practice.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, you know, say a report comes back. So let's talk about buyer or seller. When a report comes back, how do you help the buyer or the seller kind of understand the difference in your report between something that's major and something that's minor? I mean, I'm sure you have your report laid out in a certain way, but do
Mhm.
you go over these things with the client at all?
Yes, I ask all the buyers to be present at the home inspection so I can go through every photo at the end of the inspection. And so they have a really good idea what's going to be on the report. And I explain it in relatively plain English so they understand, okay, this is going to sound terrible in the report, but this is actually very minor. But the verbiage I have to use is going to sound bad. But this is a very minor issue, very easy fix. This is a typical handyman issue, or vice versa. This is something you do need an engineer for. You do need a tradesman, a foundation company to look at this. This is a
Mhm.
little more severe. So at the end of the inspection, I go through all of that with them so that they're very aware of perhaps what trade they need. They need a roofer, electrician, um, on that particular item. So it's it's just very important to do that for them.
Yeah. And just to educate, I think
Yeah.
that's the one thing that's most important. Uh, Regular people don't know the
Mhm.
technicalities of things. Regular people don't, you're going into a home and you're looking at, like he said earlier, the cosmetics, the beauty of it, the backsplash, the
Yeah.
lighting, you're looking at all the pretty things, but not knowing the intricate details behind the scenes, underground, behind the walls. And I think that's where Tony does such a phenomenal job, where I have heard from real estate agents and also buyers, sellers that really appreciate the care and concern that he takes in communicating and then educating at the same time. And so that's something I think is such a benefit from Tony, something that
Mhm.
he really prioritizes. Sometimes he doesn't come home till super late because he's been airplaying pictures on a TV for clients to see,
Yeah.
what's going on. And so it's something that he takes very seriously, and he does a really good job with that.
Yeah.
I love
I
that. I
just really
love that because, oh, go ahead, please.
I just really want them to understand what they're buying
Hmm.
um,
Mhm.
at the end of the day and help make their decision
Well,
and
that's
informed.
right, because yes, I feel like that's the most important piece. And I do feel like sometimes with home inspections, depending on the company, that piece is missing. The education part is really important because these buyers, and there are a lot of first-time buyers out there, but even if they're not a first-time buyer, that doesn't mean that they know about all the components of a home and how they're supposed to work. And even us as agents, we do our best because I go to all the inspections, but we don't know everything. And so it's really helpful when an inspector can, if they just point out some of the major things and educate, that's really, really helpful, I think. Um, okay, so here's a big question. So if a buyer or a seller is looking for an inspector, what should a person look for? I think you've already said some great things that you guys do, but what should someone look for in an inspector? Because people are going to go online, they're going to ask their agent, of course, and we're going to give them recommendations, but what should they look for in an inspector that's important?
I think beyond personality and stuff like that, I think you need to look at their certifications and their education.
Yeah.
If they're a certified professional inspector, or
Mm.
if they just have their license. I'm a certified professional inspector. We do a lot of things. So we do radon. So I'm a radon measurement professional, which most people are not. So I could basically work at a lab probably if I wanted to for radon. Um,
Wow.
I'm a certified pest inspector, so a
Mhm.
lot of people don't do pest. So you really want to find somebody that has all the tools in their tool belt and are certified in those. I'm a certified thermographer for thermal imaging. So that's what I would look for, is somebody that
Mhm.
has the designations and the certifications. Um, it shows that they care about the business and are educated on it and are into continuing education and continue to learn,
Mhm.
and somebody that cares about that stuff. So that's what I would go first foremost for. And if, of course, experience in the area.
And just from experience in my history of buying and selling homes, I had to have multiple people years ago. We needed to have a pest inspection done for a VA loan because that was required. And we had a home inspector come in, but didn't know that they didn't do pests, that they couldn't inspect for pests. So we had to find someone else and pay more money. And it
Mhm.
becomes stressful. It's already a stressful process. And so if you can find someone that has the majority, if not all, of what you're needing,
Mhm.
for the requirements for that, definitely the certifications are important.
Yeah.
So
And I'm a
drone,
drone FAA drone pilot, and
mold.
a lot of home
Oh.
inspectors don't use drones. So if they can't get
Hmm.
on the roof, they can't get on the roof,
Hmm.
and so you don't get a very good
Mm,
valuation. But
Hmm.
I'm a drone pilot, so
Hmm.
I can see everything, and that's another thing I would look for, is to make sure that somebody can do that
Hmm.
and
oh,
cover.
that's so helpful because just what you mentioned, Danny, a lot of times you have to call multiple people to do this inspection, or not everyone offers radon, all the and radon in Indiana is a big thing, right? So,
Hmm.
is that a big thing in California? You know
No,
what? I don't know. Okay,
no.
yeah. Well,
Yeah. But
um, so
pools and spas,
Yeah,
that's
oh,
another thing, is
right.
that you have to find a separate inspector sometimes to do
yeah.
the pool spa.
Yep.
That's something Tony is
I'm certified in pool
certified in.
spas.
So just knowledge. You're looking for knowledge, I think.
Yeah,
Mhm.
People that are educated and have those certifications, that have taken the time to study, learn, test, and have the experience too.
yeah. My next one is asbestos. So shortly, we certified asbestos inspector. So that's my next one.
Mhm.
So continuing my education.
I love that. So you guys do it all, which is amazing. So, of course, when we post this video, we are going to put all your information below, how to best reach you. And I think you told me that they can book online. Is that right?
Yes,
Yep.
we have a website. It is very easy, very user friendly, and it's super simple to book that inspection. We get the email and the text alert that someone has requested that. If there's questions that we have, we will call or text, and just communicate in that way so that we can make sure that we have all the information that we need. We will schedule that appointment immediately. There'll be a confirmation email, there'll be reminders sent to both agents and the client as well, so that everybody's on the same page. And then Tony is actually very good at getting the inspections done the same day. Now, if we
Yes.
have a
Hmm.
home that's 10,000 square feet, that's going to take a little bit more time. So that will probably most likely come early the next morning.
Next week.
But we are typically, Tony is very, very good about getting those inspections same day so that there's not any holdup or delay in the process.
Yeah. Generally that night you'll have the report.
Hmm.
So
Wow, that's very fast. And I will say we don't have very many 10,000 square feet foot homes here. Maybe if you did the inspection on the Ursay home, but not many others
we have fun.
around, really. But you guys are so awesome. I'm so thankful that you came on here and we're educating people. Like you said, education, we're educating people on why home inspections are so important. And it's really important that I feel like we do that and share this. So again, anyone watching this video, if you're looking for a great home inspector in central Indiana, please reach out to them. We'll put their information below. And I thank both of you so much. I thank you for being on video, and just I hope you guys have a great day.
Thank
Awesome.
you,
Thank you,
Jennifer.
Jennifer. You too. We appreciate you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.